My name is Maria Romero, the founder of the gallery. Welcome to our first ever video interview. I'm incredibly excited because today we get to chat with the founders of Quaranqueer, an Instagram self-portrait archive created by Madrid-based photographer Jennifer Gómez in partnership with Austin-based photographer Javier Lopez, aimed at promoting visibility to the queer community's experience during a period of isolation. Jennifer, Javier, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to speak with me today.
Thank you.
I want to first start off by asking you guys to introduce yourself and just give our audience a bit of background on who you are and your creative journey.
Okay,
You want to start,
I'll go
Jennifer?
first. Sure. I'm Jennifer Gómez. I'm a photographer, Salvadorian photographer based in Madrid. And also I'm a retouching specialist. I do photo retouching for beauty, advertisement campaigns, and a photographer as well, like I said. I do a little bit of everything, pretty much. And I specialize in architecture, but I do portraits, I do a little bit of fashion photo, I do landscaping, and that's what I do.
Wow, you're a jack of all trades.
Right. Anything else you want to add, Jennifer? I feel like you do so many things.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm Javi. Well, I like to go by Javi, but I'm Javier Lopez. Also Salvadorian photographer. But I specialize in graphic design, especially web, but I have a keen interest in illustration, photo, portraiture, anything creative. If I don't know how to do it, I'll figure out a way to do it. So now I reside in Austin for, it's been what, my third anniversary now, just recently. And yeah, that's a little bit of what I do.
Great. And I'm very curious, how did you guys meet and how did you guys end up collaborating on this project?
We met around 7 or 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, we've been longtime friends and collaborators as well. We met about 7, 8 years, like Jennifer said, and we met back at home in El Salvador. We were both working at the same company, nothing fabulous, nothing in the creative industry. But we met there, and we met through one of my best friends. And he connected us. Then later than that, we both moved around the same time, but she moved to Madrid and I moved to Austin. And we were sort of like, you know, just like everyone, quarantine happened or lockdown happened, like the strict quarantine that began on March. To me, it was March 13. And I remember that because that was the day that South by Southwest was going to start. And I guess we were kind of, I want to say, bored and isolated, and at the same time wanting to look a sense of community and as well as to self-nurturing and exploration, I guess. And Jennifer came up with this great idea of like, why don't we start sort of like an online community where, you know, we can express this sort of feelings of it wasn't just anger and isolation. I think it was a mix of unresolved feelings and confusion, because it was just a whole cocktail. I don't think I'm alone in feeling that way when quarantine first started. And anyway, Jennifer came up with the idea, and we rolled with it. I made the visual line and graphic design, and we sort of like, as a group, we sort of like, okay, so what are the guidelines? What are we asking for? And what do we want? And we sort of like ran from there.
Yeah, and also we thought that was very important because as photographers, we have the need to create images, to see what's going on with our eyes. And being in lockdown, I was in Mexico City with my girlfriend that I had to flew to be with her in the period of lockdown. So it was like super crazy because it was not my home or my country. So it was a different feeling. And the beginning with a self-portrait, because it was either taking me photos or taking her photos. So it was a really challenging episode in my life and in everyone's life. Um, so it was pretty much like putting ourselves out there with a self-portrait that is not easy to take. It shows like vulnerability, like in the maximum expression, and even more if it's just in like in a selfie way or something more elaborate. Um, we started to think like, okay, we're going to do this project and we're going to ask the people. First, it was our friends. We are our very close friends in our circle to try to put themselves out there and like to create like a space, a safe space, and to share something like with words about how they were feeling. And of course, it's something very difficult to do, to put in words. And I think it was an exercise that maybe some of you did, like, put how am I feeling today? I certainly did. And it was like super crazy to think or to feel like Javi said, like, not just anger, but like feeling scared, like super anxious all the time, like every day, reading or watching the news. So we're going to give that space as well about what to put in the photo as comment or like as a caption. And some people express themselves like with just a one word, like a song or even with poems. And other people came up with like super long statements about how they were feeling or about how they wanted to show support or how they wanted to receive support or how important was for them to put themselves out there, because it was like we were talking with Javi that the spaces that we as a queer community have been using or we have been in the streets or people, yeah, people saw us, but in quarantine during lockdown, no one saw us. So it was like, we are still here and we want to be seen. So as well, that was the feeling that we got when we started. And I think it was really shared across the world, actually.
Absolutely. And what would you guys say has been most impactful to you about Quaranqueer? And what do you think has been most impactful to the people that contributed to the project as well as to your followers?
Can I hear the question again?
Yes. So what do you think has been most impactful about Quaranqueer, both in regards to yourselves as well as the people that contributed to the project and the followers that were able to see the posts and engage with you guys?
Okay. I go first if you want.
Yeah.
I think for me was really, it created an impact, the fact that for some time, the submissions that we received were from certain kind of people. For example, certain social extract or like certain parts of the world. So that was a really like, okay, we have this, but we are more than that. We need to showcase something more. How do we reach these other people that that is not that they don't want to be rich, of course, but how can we get to them for them to show us and and to show us how they feel as well, because it's important for that space. It was important at the moment and still is to see, for example, I don't know, at the beginning it was pretty much like middle class people showing us how they felt. But of course, there is more than that. There are queer people all over the social strata, or there are more queer people than in the United States or in El Salvador. So when we started to receive like submissions from different strats of the society, or from people, I don't know, from Japan or from Poland or from Chile, it was like, wow, this is how did you get word of this? Because I didn't reach you. How? So it was really like, wow. And even more when we receive like private messages saying thank you. I mean, I get goosebumps just to remember the feeling. It was like, wow.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think also feeling like I felt like my quarantine was pretty bad, or like my lockdown experience was pretty bad, but it really opened my eyes to what the experience of other people was, and how my experience didn't sound as bad anymore. You know, it sort of really opened my eyes as to that, you know, it sounds cheesy, but to be grateful for what you have at that moment. Because other countries, like in the US, we kind of just had a strict quarantine for maybe for 60 days, I believe. And then after that, it was sort of like to each responsibility to take care of yourself. And in other countries, the quarantine extended to a lengthy amount of time, and it was very strict to just grocery or essential things. And and yes, you're protecting yourself. For how scarring is it to, you know, not being able to have a choice, like if you want to go to the park or you want to do things and still be safe. They didn't have a choice but to stay home. And I think that really opened my eyes to that, to be more conscious that my experience is not just my own.
Definitely. You guys might have actually already answered this, but I'll ask just in case there's anything different you want to add. But was there anything that surprised you about learning about people's experiences throughout quarantine?
I would say maybe that,
Go.
for example, it was like, for some people, anxiety started with quarantine and lockdown, but there are other people that they have been living with anxiety all their lives. So it was a new way to empathize maybe with them, and it was like, it surprised me that I wasn't that I didn't have that much empathy as the people needed me to be, maybe, and I didn't know. So yeah, and the fact that the new disease for our generation is going to be, or it is, anxiety, and
Yeah.
this just upgraded that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me was very surprising to, I knew that quarantine was very strict, but I didn't imagine how strict it could be for other places. I think that was very shocking and very eye-opening, you know.
Absolutely. And my next question actually ties into what you just said, Jennifer. So social media is often villainized as a cause for depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, etc.,
Yeah.
or a tool that is often used to promote violence or hate. How can we use this resource responsibly to continue to foster communities like Quaranqueer while mitigating the dangers of these networks?
Well, maybe, I don't know. And at the beginning, it, for example, Quaranqueer was an account that was pretty much about love and comforting other people, and a respectful place, a place where everyone could be welcome and every feeling is valid. And we kept on saying that during every call that we had, every post on our stories. And of course, every time that someone commented on another's photograph, we tried to pretty much not like manage it or like be strict in a way that we're not going to receive any kind of hate. But I think that the message that we kept on spreading while, for example, in those stories and everything was like really trying to positivize, sorry, to emphasizing the positivity of what that people or that person was stating. And like the fact that the feelings that this person was sharing with us, they were important and we needed to respect that. No matter what, or like we cannot minimize, for example, like Javi said, his quarantine or lockdown was very different from someone from Kenya, but that doesn't make it less important.
Right.
So it was, we tried to emphasize that everything is important because every feeling is important. And I think maybe the accounts or the the managers of the accounts that promote this kind of things should do that. I think.
That's a good point. Do you have anything to add, Javi?
No, I think Jennifer was really good. Thanks, Queen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of handling something that can be very difficult. And then this is my last question, so I won't take up too much of y'all's time. But hoping that there will be some kind of resolution to this pandemic, how do you guys see Quaranqueer evolving post social distancing?
We have discussed that. That's a very good question. I don't know. I think that Quaranqueer, if we have been this archive of photos for people to get a sense of community, I think we should just carry on to just keep spreading that message of love and visibility and just across the board, you know, because I was very surprised to how many people the project has reached. That it was sort of a very incredible thing to see. But I don't. We have discussed this once, and I don't know if we have an answer for that. But I think there's a lot of room for the project to bloom and to keep growing, even post quarantine. I even thought of like, what if we change the name? What if we make it something else? But honestly, the archive is a very important piece and I don't want to say in history of the world, but at least in my history, it's very important. And so I think like changing the name would be like erasing all these people's experiences, including my own. So I think it should stay as is, but I don't know if Jennifer has any ideas for an evolution yet. But I have thought about it.
It's a daily thought actually, because we don't want to lose the impulse, the community that we have created, or that has been growing around it. And like Javi said, changing to something else, like more, I don't want to say like something more of what the name implies, but perhaps like not changing the question about your thoughts or your feelings regarding the quarantine or the lockdown itself, but maybe going further with some other questions that queer people may have. And we would like to see the answers, or yeah, I don't know. There are so many questions that people have and so many answers, and people want to be heard and seen.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's going to stay social, but yes.
Yeah. I think also something else I wanted to add, because we are from El Salvador and we have reached a lot of the queer community in El Salvador. And when I left, I felt like my queer community was the people that I was surrounded with. And now from far away, Quaranqueer has really opened my eyes to see the queer community that I was not hanging out with, or the scene that it has been truly incredible to see people from El Salvador showing up. When all this time before coming, I was like, where are you guys? Like, where is this rest of the rainbow that I would definitely see at Pride? Because we went to Pride and Pride was massive, but I don't know, there was like missing pieces, or El Salvador might be tiny, but it was sort of like, I don't know, it's been amazing to me to see it. And at this time, I think the page we have a voice, and I think that El Salvador is slowly introducing queer candidates in politics and like all of these things. And I feel like if we have that platform and we have that voice and we have a crowd from El Salvador and even from other countries, I think it would be also important to maybe include that in an evolution to sort of like keep helping and keep reaching people with the platform that we have. So
Absolutely. I definitely think that what you guys have created is so important and such a source of light. It actually reminds me of the mail art movement, the Argentine mail art movement in the 60s and 70s, when they had this really censored, repressive dictatorship, and they would form a network through mailing art to each other because it was one of the only form of communication that wasn't censored. So definitely, and I definitely feel like even post pandemic, there will be, a change towards more like social distancing. So I definitely feel like it's important as we're becoming more digitized to have that community and these networks where we're still learning from people, collaborating with people, and just spreading, happiness and light where we can. Um,
Totally.
so I'm really, really happy to have had you guys on. Thank you so
thank
much.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
That was it for me. Um, and then I do have a virtual gallery up, so everyone make sure to check that out, where you can see some of the featured photographs and learn a little bit more about Quaranqueer. But thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.